Good evening, I'm Pinky Webb. Tonight we ask the questions, we tackle the issues, we clarify matters, and we get on point. President Bongbong Marcos vows to implement comprehensive reforms in education. This comes amid criticisms on the K-12 system. Some lawmakers want to scrap the two-year senior high school, but the chairman of the Senate Committee on Basic Education warns this may lead to bigger problems such as youth unemployment. Let's get on point with Senator Gatchalian. He joins us via Zoom. Senator Win, good evening to you. Thank you so much for your time and welcome to the program.
Good evening, Pinky, and good evening to our televiewers.
First of all, sir, do you agree with President Bongbong Marcos that the K-12 did not deliver on its promises?
I do agree with him, Pinky, because there are a lot of promises that the K-12 made during the discussions, but the promises were not completely delivered. But there are, after almost 12, 13 years of implementing K-12, there are positive signs of K-12, although admittedly it's not the full realization of its promises. So I would say part of the promises, for example, I was just looking at the research conducted by the PIDS and EDCOM. For example, in terms of income or wages, senior high school graduates earn about 20% more compared to junior high school graduates. And they are employed in middle-level skills compared to junior high school. There's also another positive unintended consequence that the research came out with. Teenage pregnancies declined because of the senior high school program. So meaning because women or because girls are compelled or are mandated to attend senior high school, they tend to delay teenage pregnancies or marriage at all.
I see.
So that's a good unintended consequence of this, because by the time they graduate senior high school, at least they're ready to, if they want to get married, at least they can get married, but not at the time when they are in high school. So those are the positive things that came out with. But admittedly, parents are expecting more, meaning parents are expecting that by adding 2 years, automatically they can get jobs or high-paying jobs. That didn't happen at all. No, so I would say it's not completely full. The promises were not completely realized to its fullest, but there are gains because of senior high school.
But why do you think it failed on its promises? What were the problems encountered, reason for its non-realization of the full potential of what K-12 was supposed to give to the students?
We have to look at the entire education system, Piki. We cannot just isolate senior high school. We need to look at the entire basic education spectrum as well as higher education. And the K-10 curriculum was just recently improved, I think about 2 years ago. It was launched as the Matatag curriculum. And there's so many positive feedbacks about this new curriculum because it decongested the curriculum. And this allowed teachers to teach, to have more time to teach and not cram the lessons that they are teaching. And this allowed students also to have more time to learn and also internalize their learning. So the new K-10 curriculum was just recently launched, and this is designed to improve learning and teaching of our learners. Now, senior high school is currently being reformed. In fact, this school year, 2025-2026, they are pilot implementing this new curriculum in 40 schools. And again, the aim of this reform is to decongest the senior high school curriculum. I'm saying this because in the past, the curriculum, a lot of experts found that the curriculum is really congested. And only 60 to 70% of our teachers actually teach the entire curriculum. So they don't have time to teach the entire curriculum. So they decongested this. And I think we talked about this at one
We
point.
did.
Yeah,
We did.
yeah,
I was actually going to tell you, just so to break it down also for those watching us, because yung K to 10 po, I believe that started, no, Senator Win, during the time of Vice President Sara Duterte, who was chair, or secretary rather, of the
Yes.
Department of Education. We were talking about
Correct.
this.
Yes,
Really,
we were talking about it at one point.
Diba, the summary
Yeah.
really was that masyadong maraming subjects.
Masyadong marami. There were so many subjects, so many competencies that teachers have a hard time teaching everything. So now it's decongested, and based on the feedback that we are getting, teachers are very happy with this new curriculum. So now we're focusing on senior high school, and senior high school is also being decongested right now and
Okay.
making it more attuned to going into college.
Okay, that's good to hear. I was speaking to Congressman Roman Romulo yesterday, and he actually told me that for grades 11 and 12, there are about 15 or 16 core subjects and
Yes.
another 15 or 16 non-core subjects, which to my mind was really just incredible, sir.
Yeah, yeah. And also, we also have to look at tertiary education, Pinky, because we cannot look at our education system in isolation. You have to look at the entire continuum. And what was missing also was tertiary education was not reformed. So what we did is we added 2 years in senior high school, but tertiary education remained at 4 years. And there's so many redundancies that we have detected in senior high school and also in
College.
tertiary education
Opo.
college. I'll give you a very specific example that's being talked about right now is physical education. Right now, physical education is being taught in senior high school for 2 years, and then once again, it's going to be taught in tertiary education for another 2 years. So in other words, there are 4 years of physical education, but well, in fact, what are being taught in senior high school, it's once again being taught in tertiary education. So those are the things that we can reform in order to reduce the number of years in tertiary education.
That's a point that possibly needs to be looked into, Senator. But I guess the question really that comes to mind is, why did it happen this way? I understand you're saying we can't isolate, for example, grade school, high school to college. We have to think of it as a whole system. But why make such a, I guess, would you call it a mistake?
Well, I call it an experiment because in 2012 we moved from a 10-year system to K to 12 system, and after 12 years of implementing this, because this year is actually the 12th year of implementing K to 12, we're still finding out that there are so many gaps that we need to fix, and there's so many items in the law that we need to remove because it created a lot of problems on the ground. In theory, it sounds so good when you say K to 12. It's aligned with global standards. We have to use, let's say, the mother tongue. We have to use the spiral progression. But on the ground, it created a lot of problems in implementation. What's the use of good theories if you cannot implement it? That's the problem right now. So to answer your question straight, yes, in theory, during that 12 years ago, it looked so good and looks very promising. But once implemented, it created a lot of problems and a lot of inconsistencies in terms of implementing. And that's what we are seeing right now.
But
That's
Senator,
why we want to untangle a lot of these things in our K to 12 law.
so let's look at that. One of the bigger problems of the education system definitely would be the lack of classrooms and the lack of teaching personnel and the load that the teachers have. So meron po tayong kakulangan sa mga guro at sa mga non-teaching personnel and the shortage of classrooms. Couldn't it have been wiser rather that we fix the infrastructure first, and even the human side of it, the teaching personnel, before government actually thought of extending another 2 years the school for the students?
That's a very good point, Pinky. In fact, a lot of the advocates or a lot of people who are against K to 12 at that time made that point that we have to fix infrastructure first before we add 2 years, because adding 2 years is adding more requirements for classrooms, requirements for teachers. But nandiyan na tayo, Pinky. We're already here after
Opo.
12, 13 years. So what we need to do is analyze what are the problems,
Okay.
untangle those problems, and strengthen the K to 12
Okay.
senior high school in particular right now in order to fulfill the
You
promises.
know, the reason also I brought that up, sir, was because the president also made mention of the shortage of classrooms to 160,000. I think that's the number that
Yeah,
was given.
correct.
And he said this has been decades of neglect. So one, I guess, assumes first and foremost, bago damihan o habaan po ang klase, ayusin po muna yung mga classroom. Okay, point made. But let's...
That's a good point. In fact, that 165,000 classroom is equivalent to 400 billion pesos. Pinky, half a trillion pesos is needed to fulfill that 165,000 classrooms.
All right.
So it's really a big amount.
Yeah. But
But a deeper problem with our system right now is not only overloaded teacher, but also teachers who are not specialized in their field. And we detected in EDCOM almost 70%, 60 to 70% of our teachers are compelled to teach subjects that are not their specialties. I'll give you a very case in point. In senior high school, there are a lot of tracks and strands. For example, in math, for example, in business, for example, in business, there's an accounting strand there. Some of the teachers are not even trained to teach accounting, but they are compelled to teach accounting because that's the requirement
Yeah.
in their school. No? So the mismatch is also creating a lot of issues in terms of quality, and that's another problem when it comes to fulfillment of the promises of K to 12.
And when you mentioned that, sir, that needs to be fixed first and foremost. How can
Yeah,
a
that's
teacher who
basic. You're
doesn't
correct.
really specialize in that actually teach the students? It's just it's really unfair to even hear that particular
Correct.
issue. But so let's go back to this K to 12. What is your stand? Should it be improved? Should it be scrapped? Should it be amended? What should we do?
Well, Pinky, that's a oversimplified question to ask. And it's very difficult to answer that at this point because we're talking about our education system. We're talking about educating the future generations, the future leaders of our country. And it cannot boil down to one question whether we continue with K to 12 or not. No? We need deeper analysis and engage experts to analyze this. I'll give you a very good...
But you have EDCOM, sir.
Yes, that's why I shared with you the results of the research of EDCOM earlier, and there are gains, even though it's not full gains, but there are gains in senior high school. It's not complete, like I said, it's not the complete the complete promises, but there are gains. But these are the questions we need to ask. Like for example, Pinky, there are about 1.9 million grade 10 students. If we remove senior high school, these 1.9 million students will enter the workforce. These are 16-year-old students or 16-year-old graduates. Can they get meaningful jobs at 16 years old? That's another question we have to ask. Number two, if we scrap senior high school, will they be college ready? Is the design for K to 10 will enable them to go to college?
Yeah.
Because
Fair
it's not.
enough.
So will they enter college and pursue college later on? Number three is reverting back to the 10-year system. Will now encourage 16-year-olds to enter the workforce. Will that be a good long-term proposition for our country? Because we have to also think of the long-term well-being of the country, not only well-being of our families or well-being of our constituents, but the country as a whole. No? Will it be beneficial for the country to have 16-year-olds who will graduate and enter the workforce at that early age? So these are the questions that we need to analyze. We need to really get experts to analyze this and help us decide on what track or what direction to pursue.
But this is also, I guess, in a way, sir, a race against time. When you talk about 16-year-olds at grade 10, the question that you were posing a while ago is that, number one, would they be okay? Are they ready to join the workforce? Or are they, I guess, the word would be employable, but it's also a question of, are there enough jobs? Are there enough companies that will employ these 16-year-olds?
That's
Because
another.
hindi ho ba, kasi ang problema pa rin doon, ang hahanapin pa rin po nila, college graduate eh.
Yeah, that's a good point. Because at 16-year-old, a lot of employers will say, oh, masyadong bata pa, they're still too young, they're minors, they cannot be held liable in some other responsibility. So that tends to discourage companies or discourage organizations to hire them. At the same time, will these 16-year-olds be ready to go to college? Because the K to 10 curriculum is not designed for them to go to college. It's designed for them to have the basics, but not to go to college, no? Because it was redesigned.
I guess that's the more important question, sir. Are they ready? Yun nga po, iisa-isahin ko sana yung sinabi mo kanina. Are they ready to actually go to college? Which brings me to my next point. I read something, but please correct me if I'm wrong, sir, that you are actually thinking that if there's a way to improve it, is that pwede naman pong iksian, keep the grade 11 and 12 and possibly make college 2 or 3 years. Would that be factual, sir?
Well, yes. The proposal that I am putting on the table is to reform tertiary education and make it shorter. Because from our observation in EDCOM, in fact, just yesterday, there were 2 reports that were submitted to us by PADS and also by one sponsored by USAID, that they found out that the tertiary education curriculum is what we call general education heavy and internship light compared to other countries, meaning we are devoting close to about 40% of the time of our college students to general education, which are being taught in senior high school. And we're not giving them enough time for internship, which is the requirement of companies and organizations. The requirement of organization is to become job ready. And you can only do that if you have internship and experience and exposure. And that's what we lack in our tertiary education. So we're focusing on our tertiary education level because there seems to be a mismatch between what our industries want and what we are delivering to our students.
It's good that there are those studies, of course, and analysis that have come out to be able to fine-tune this K to 12, or whether it be K to 12, if it will be amended or just improved. But I guess, sir, because after 12 or 13 years, we should be able to have a better understanding on what
Correct.
really needs to be done. But also, of course, it's not a simple question of, you're right, whether it should just be amended or not, or strengthened or not. There's a lot of factors that need to be considered
I
here.
think that question should be posed to experts and people who are really into the education research, rather than politicians being asked about it and being and us answering it, because we need to really study this very carefully and look at the bigger picture, not only just one segment, which is senior high school, but we have to look at the entire country.
Right.
Because at the end, it's this new generation entering the workforce, and do they have the right skills, the right knowledge, the right education to get meaningful jobs later on and contribute to nation building? So those are the things that we need to look at.
Just very quickly, though, this proposal of yours, is this something you plan to formalize, sir, to possibly kind of strengthen, shorten the tertiary education?
This is a fact, Pinky. There's now evidence saying that tertiary education in the Philippines is general education heavy, meaning we're devoting so much time on general education that are being taught already in senior high school, and it's internship light, meaning we're not exposing our college students to the real world.
Sir, sorry, let me cut you there. Let me cut you there, because if you're saying that is the study, and then you told me earlier that would grade 10 students be ready for college? That actually answers your question, because if it's general heavy, if college is general heavy, di kaya po nila itawid yung grade 10 to first-year college kasi nga general education heavy yon. So pwede po nila i-take up yon sa maybe the first year of college.
Well, the design of, because when K to 10, the new K to 10 curriculum was redesigned, it took into consideration K to 12. No? And the mentality there is when they reach grade 11 and grade 12, this is a time where they will be trained to become college ready or work ready. So a lot of the soft skills will be taught during that time, and a lot of the core subjects will be injected at that time. So again, they were thinking of the continuum. So we cannot look at K to 10 in isolation and then jumping
Okay.
to college, because all of this is a continuum, and the subjects are actually building blocks of one another until you
Yeah.
graduate from
Okay.
high school.
So I cut you there, sir. You were talking about
No,
my question
yes.
on the cutting or amending the tertiary college.
Yeah,
So please go ahead.
based on the research that were presented to us yesterday, there's now evidence saying that tertiary education can be reformed and shortened. In fact, it can be shortened as much as 3 years or even 2.5 years, 2.5 years to 3 years. So depending on the course that you are taking, and that's something beneficial to our parents, because once the learner enters college, they will just focus on their concentration on the subject matter that they want to take. All of the general education subjects will be now pushed and handled by senior high school,
Tapos
because
na.
these are the soft skills that everyone needs to learn anyways. I'll give you a very specific example. Critical thinking. Critical thinking is a subject or a skill or a soft skill that everyone needs to learn. It doesn't matter if you will go into employment, if you become an entrepreneur, or go to whatever industry. Critical thinking is basic and foundational, and that's something that we need to teach all of our senior high school, not only those who enter college.
All right. So how to move from here, sir?
Well, just to answer your question earlier, I do intend to file a law that
Okay.
will reduce the number of years in college from 3 years. Based on the study, it can even reduce further to 2.5 years, depending on the subject.
You mean from 4 years to 2.5 to 3 years?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So we plan to file that bill this coming
20th Congress na
20th
po.
Congress, and we can back it up with research, and I think that will be beneficial to our families, because once the learner graduates from senior high school or from high school, pagpasok niya ng college, that person will just concentrate on his majors, and that will enable him to finish earlier than the 4-year requirement right now.
Yeah, is this patterned? I mean, is there any country that actually implements this, sir?
That's a very good question. All of the Commonwealth countries, England, Canada, Australia,
Yeah.
and you can Google that. All of them have
see.
three-year college periods. We patterned ourselves to America. America has 4 years. But
All
in
right.
Commonwealth countries, they have only 3 years. So if you're studying in Canada or in England, their college duration there is only 3 years.
Let me move to another subject, sir. Also, I've spoken to you many times, especially when you were the chairperson of the Committee on Energy there at the Senate, with what is going on right now, sir. And I'm sure that you know that next week it is projected that diesel prices will go up either somewhere between 4 to 5 pesos, and gasoline 3 to 4 pesos, kerosene around the same amount. Sir, what should government do? Because there is a call again, as it has been a call in the past, to remove temporarily the excise tax on petroleum products.
Well, the good thing is we have budget to give subsidies. We have about 2.5 billion pesos to give in terms of subsidies to transportation, to fishermen, to farmers who use petroleum. So that's already built in, and the government just needs to monitor the price carefully and also on the dot. So there's budget to give targeted subsidies to those who are in need. The problem with suspending excise tax is those who consume more oil or those who consume more or petroleum products are actually the ones gaining. And those who are consuming it are the ones in the upper segment of our society. Those who have many cars, those who drive big cars, those are the ones who will benefit from it. So it's inequitable just to suspend it totally. So the best way is to come up with targeted programs. And again, there's budget to do targeted programs to address the shocks in oil prices.
But the problem here, Senator, is that it's a targeted ayuda. As you mentioned a while ago, it could be for the fisher folk, for the PUV drivers. But we're also, the minimum wage earners, rather, are also going to be very much affected by, right now, a 4 or 5 peso increase in diesel prices. And we don't know what's going to happen the week after that or even 2 weeks after that.
That's true. But the minimum wage earners are normally the ones using public transportation. So, and that's why these targeted programs are aimed to address the increase of fares with our public transportation. So those who are taking, let's say, the buses or the jeeps, these targeted programs will enable them to avoid raising fares.
I don't have the data to back this up, sir, but I'm just thinking that it could be minimum wage earners and those who are earning a little bit more than that, who are actually using motorcycles daily also, sir. Matatamaan ho kasi sila. Kaya lang, I guess the point I'm trying to make is, understandably, PUVs, di ba, fisher folk, etc. Pero yung mga kasama po natin sa trabaho, yun din po yun talagang natatamaan eh.
Correct. So we have to study what other programs that we can do in order to address those who are also in that segments. We can expand the program to address some of those segments who are going to be absorbing the shock in terms of increase in oil prices. But for now, at least in the public transportation, the fisher folk, there's already 2.5 billion that can subsidize and address the shocks.
And you wouldn't really, until this point, consider, even as you had reasoned out already, suspending excise taxes on petroleum products?
The problem with suspending completely excise taxes, those who are consuming more gasoline are the ones benefiting.
Yeah, you
and
said.
Not fair. No, that's not fair because the ones who can afford are the ones who will benefit. It's a sweeping action that will become inequitable to society. That's why I would rather address it through targeted programs and expand the targeted program if need be. Those targeted programs actually includes, right now, the 2.5 also includes tricycles. So at least we can also help the tricycles to absorb, not to absorb the shocks that they will be experiencing in the next few days.
Senator Gatchalian, sir, pleasure to have you. Maraming salamat po sa inyong oras.
Maraming salamat. Thank you, Pinky.
And that's On Point. Join us again on Monday, 7:30 p.m. here on BNC, the Billionario News Channel. I'm Pinky Webb. Thank you for watching.